Are we live? We are
We are
live!
live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Badass Engineers. I am so excited to be working with RS Grassroots Education again to bring the second season of this podcast to you. And oh my God, what a brilliant guest to start with. Hello, Susie Martínez.
Hi.
Hi. So you are an ex-NASA engineer and you're currently a Blue Origin engineer, right?
Yes, I'm doing
Do you want to
payload development.
introduce?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sorry.
to the thing.
So, former NASA engineer working the International Space Station and payload development and additive manufacturing for 3 years total, full time. And then I was a co-op and I was an intern. Like my whole career so far has been government, NASA, completely in that realm. And then in September, I decided, enough of that. So I work at Blue Origin now. I'm a payload development engineer working on their new space station called Orbital Reef, and they have a really cool website to check out, by the way.
There's so many terms in there that I had no idea what they mean. Are you
Oh no.
doing similar things in
Yes.
both places? Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So at Blue Origin, I do payload development, and a payload is just like a small box of science. You can do all kinds of things with payloads, and really, if you break it down, anything can be a payload. Like anything with a science purpose is a payload in space. So I worked as a flight controller for the International Space Station doing payload operations. I know, right? It was awesome. It
That's
was
so cool.
stressful and exhausting, but I was an operations controller, so we were really in charge of all of the payload operations. So like it was a lot, right? And then I came over to Blue, and now I'm doing payload development on like the groundbreaking side. Like everything that we're doing is brand new, and it's really exciting to be on kind of the ground floor of this new space station, this new type of space station. So
Wow.
I'm so excited to be working on it and kind of finally being able to make my mark on engineering.
What do you mean finally? I mean, you've been making your mark on engineering for quite some years now. I've been following you for a while. I know.
Gosh,
I
it
know.
has been almost like this year in October will be 3 years. That is so crazy to me that I've had my platform for that long. That's mind blowing.
So tell us about your platform.
Oh yeah,
Because
so
you're also a fashion
sorry.
designer and you're a nail artist, right? Like,
Yeah,
what
so
can you
I
not
do.
do?
Well, thank you. You're so nice. But I have this platform on Instagram called @AstraSue, and you can see it on my name down here. And it's more about empowering women in STEM and in space specifically because that's where I'm in space. I came from a really small town in Appalachia, and I didn't really have a lot of women to look up to in an
Mm.
engineering sense. Like when I was an engineering student, I had one other friend who was an engineering student, and my twin sister who was also an engineering student, and that was it. Like I didn't have any adult women to like look up to that were also engineers. So it's kind of just to take this space and make it open for anybody who is missing that kind of role model, and they look at my fashion content or my educational videos or my Sue's STEM or Sue's Space Symposium, which is my engineering videos and all of this stuff, and they kind of see, hey, I am similar to her in these ways. I can be like that. I can have a career like what she has. So it's more about empowering those who don't necessarily have kind of a role model right in front of them, like someone they're gonna have to like search out. So and
Mm.
Instagram is a great place to do that. And before that, my account was a nail art account that I've had for close to 10 years. So did nails. And I'm not a fashion designer per se. You give me way too much credit, but I do have a line of merchandise that I designed.
Design.
I have tried to sew. It did not turn out super great, but I'm still learning. So maybe someday we'll add fashion designer into the title there at the very end.
And have you ever sort of felt, because I'm really creative too, and I do my dancing, and I sometimes make belly dance costumes, and people
Yeah.
have always sort of pressured me to choose. You're
Mhm.
either an artist or an engineer. Is this something that you felt people have put on you before?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When I was younger, I actually did a lot of musical theater. I've done a lot of
Yay.
weird, random things. So I did a lot of musical theater, and that was kind of what I wanted to pursue in college. And my mom, she knocked some sense into me and was like, "Hey, you should do something in engineering or science or whatever." So I actually started pursuing computer science, and then I took
Nice.
one coding class, and I was like, you know what?
This
No, not for me.
this is not for me.
So I switched to mechanical engineering because the math part was the fun. That's the part that I liked, right?
hmm
It was all of the coding that I was so
But
bad
you
at
love
it.
the maths, just not the code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I had to sort of choose when choosing what I wanted to go to college for because that feels like a very natural choice. But and then I kind of got out of the more creative stuff until I started my platform. And then that's been kind of my creative outlet for me, which is really cool and definitely not something that I would have ever expected ever. Like if you had told me 5-ish years ago, I don't 10 years ago that I would be like a STEM influencer or that I would even be in STEM at all, I'd be like, what are you
Oh
talking
my
about? Like
god.
that's what the heck? That's so
So it
weird. Why would
wasn't
I
even
do
on
that?
your radar at
No,
all.
not at all.
But
Yeah, not at all.
you've got like a huge following on Instagram as well, right? Like
Not a huge following. 70,000 is pretty big. It's cool. We're
70,000
having a
is
we're having
huge.
a fun time, all of us, hanging out, watching some STEM videos. It is what
I
it
love it. I love it. So I'm so glad I found you. I don't know if you know how badass engineers usually works, but we get people's questions and we put them in a bag and we collect them at random. I have no idea what's gonna come out.
is.
I'm
Scary.
also reading the comments to anybody watching us live. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments and we'll try our best to answer them live on the podcast. Are you
Yeah,
ready?
I'm so ready.
Yeah,
Let's find
are
out our
you
first question.
all right, okay.
I love that there's a physical bag. Like I love this like the rabbit in the hat situation.
Oh yeah, I actually had a different bag before, and I will get that again. But I've just had a lot of work done in my lab, so the bag is somewhere. I'm just not sure
You'll
where.
find it. You'll find it.
Okay, so this question says, "What's the difference about Blue Origin?" So what's different about Blue Origin from NASA?
Yeah, so being government versus private industry is a huge difference in the first place, right? So on the government side, you're obviously the one offering the contracts. The people are bidding for the contracts to work for NASA because everybody wants to work for NASA, right?
Yeah,
So on the private side, it's quicker, definitely quicker,
yeah.
more deadlines because you're trying to meet these other expectations of not only your own company but also the government.
What? You have more deadlines in the private
Yeah,
sector than in the
yeah, so
government.
we have to like
Right.
when you're vying for a NASA contract, they set these milestones for you to meet, but we have to set them before they set them so that we can make sure that we've met them with verification. I know, right? So our cycles are our milestone, verify their milestone, just so that we know that we've met it and we don't, get off on some sort of technicality. Because like there's a ton of people buying for these contracts and they're not going to be like, oh, it's okay. Like here's some more time. Like you have to meet these deadlines in order to win these contracts. So
Mhm.
that's a huge difference already. The environment is sort of different, not super different because everybody that you work with are still engineers, right? And um, yeah, I mean, it's much faster pace, and I really, really like that. But I know some other people that are just they love working at NASA, and I love
Yeah.
working at NASA too. It's just different times in my life, and who
Yeah.
knows? Somebody someday maybe I'll go back to working at NASA.
And you were at NASA for how many years?
3 years full time, 5 years total civil service. So because
I would count it as 5.
yeah, so 5 years, even though I
5
graduated in
years.
2019 in college. But the way that the co-op program works is that when you start your co-op, you're a civil servant. So like I was a part-time, full-time civil servant for 2 years before I graduated. So
Mhm.
that's how it works. That's why I have 5 years of service, even though I was 3 years full-time. So
Okay, wow. Okay, that's a long time. I don't think I've ever
it's
stayed
a lot.
anywhere for 5 years.
Well, like it's so funny because everywhere, like everybody at NASA, like it's their career. Like they started out of college and then they stayed the whole time. And I just I didn't necessarily want that for
That's
myself. Although
fair,
I
yeah.
did always think that I was going to retire from NASA, and you would not believe the amount of people that just stay there 40, 50 years, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm done now. Let's retire. It's
Well,
crazy to me.
there's no right answers. There's so many different
Yeah.
choices, and yeah, honestly, I thought I was gonna end up in academia, and I thought I was gonna, yeah, stay there forever. But when I joined the industry, I was like, oh, this is a lot more money.
Yeah, and I mean, and private industry does pay better than the government as well because they're not the government. So that's
Yeah,
another difference, especially.
yeah,
But I mean, when you work somewhere like NASA in the government, not necessarily, like the military or any of the other branches of the government, it has this sort of prestige, I would call it, with
yeah,
that is associated with just working in NASA because NASA is it's NASA, right? Like everybody knows what NASA is, and even more than just Americans wanting to work at NASA. Like everybody wants to work at NASA, and there's all these amazing private space companies doing so many incredible things. Yet
yeah.
people only ever want to work at NASA because it's just everybody knows it and it's so popular and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's such a big prestige. I actually I applied to be an astronaut when when the selection came. Obviously not for NASA
for
because I live in
ESA,
the
right?
UK. So yeah, for ESA. Yeah. But my luck was that 20,000 other people applied. So obviously I was not gonna. I
Yeah.
got called first stage. My application didn't go very far at all.
Oh, hey, I can't even apply because I don't have a master's degree. So you're one
Oh
step
yeah,
ahead of me.
I did see that actually, and I was wondering, what's the thinking behind that? Because I don't
I
know
think it's
why.
so it was just a recent change actually. Like 2018 is when they had the last class updated, and that's when they released the master's
Yeah,
stipulations. I think it's honestly to narrow down the application pool because everybody has a bachelor's and it's not incredibly specific. So like you could do it with any sort of science, not necessarily engineering or anything like that. So they were getting hundreds of thousands of
oh my
applicants.
god,
So they had to update it a little bit to be more
yeah.
specific to master students or older or
Well,
higher, I guess.
I have a master's and I still missed that train. Are you ready for another question from the bag? Are you
Let's do it.
ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, okay, okay. What's gonna come out? What's gonna come out? Oh, it's been such a long time since I used this platform that I forgot how to sort of change the screens.
No.
But okay, so I have a question and it says, "Why did you leave NASA?"
Yes, so I knew this was coming. Um, there's
Woo!
so many reasons that somebody would want to leave NASA. There's also so many reasons why somebody would stay at NASA, right? For
Yeah,
me personally, I had changed from working in my additive lab, doing additive manufacturing, to then becoming a flight controller, and it is a very different schedule. It is high pace, high stress, high risk, and I mean you're keeping people alive in
yeah,
space, right?
yeah,
And what you're in charge of is making sure that they're safe in space. So my job specifically was making sure that the astronauts were safe in space while they're doing their payload
in the
operations
ISS.
on the ISS. Yes.
Okay.
So very stressful. You had really long shifts of 8 to 10 hours, but that's like a
My
normal
God.
working shift, right? But you have to be prepared to go on console. So I was
Yeah.
working like 100 hours, like just to make sure that I was prepared to go on console.
Oh my
Other
goodness.
people don't necessarily work like that.
Yeah.
So if they're like veteran OCs, right? If they've been there 5 to 10 years, like they just they're prepared, right? They know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. They know what's gonna happen. But when I was so new, right, it stressed me out so much, and I wasn't getting any sleep. Even when I was sleeping, I wasn't getting any sleep. So it
Yeah.
was affecting all these aspects of my life. So I was struggling a little bit, and it took me about 3 months of me kind of feeling pretty defeated about
Mm.
just existing because I wasn't getting any sleep before I decided I can't do this anymore. So that's why I quit.
I'm really glad you've done what's right for you and what's best for you. It's really
Thanks.
great to hear.
It was a hard decision though because
Of
it's
course.
very hard to give up something that everyone else feels like that's what they want, when you already have it and
Yeah.
you feel ungrateful that this is what my career has been so far. Like I've been so lucky to have been a civil servant
Yeah.
this whole time, and then one thing after another just puts me over the edge, and I can't do it anymore, right? So I felt that guilt associated with, oh, I'm giving up something that everybody else wants. And then there's going to be questions of, well, why did you leave? Why didn't you just stick it out? Like, it can't be that bad, you know? So it's more of just like it was a very personal, very personal choice for me. And I'm so glad I made it. And I love working in Blue, and the schedule is normal and I get to sleep and it's great.
I get to sleep.
I get to
At
sleep.
Blue Origin now I get to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. Okay,
Thank
I'm going to
you.
get another question out. This one is from a friend of the show, Matt Ben, who is doing really cool work about making sort of chip design open source and accessible. So Matt is asking, what is your favorite part about mentoring for NCAS? And I have no idea what NCAS is.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of backstory on what NCAS is, and it's National Community College Aerospace Scholars. So it is actually a program specifically for community college students. And I have been a mentor. In my time at NASA, I was a mentor like 10 times. Like, I loved it. But the reason I wanted to be a mentor for NCAS specifically was because when I applied to be an intern in 2015 or 2016 was when I had my internship. Spring 2016, I applied for my NASA internship, and I thought I was applying for NCAS because I was a community college student and I hadn't taken any engineering classes at all. So I was like, this is the only thing I'm going to be able to get.
Okay.
So what I applied for was an actual internship, and then I got it, and I couldn't believe it because I was a part of the student government of my community college, and our advisor had given me this paper for NCAS, and she was like, you should apply to this. I'm like, okay. So I thought I had applied to it, and I didn't.
Nice.
I had applied to a real internship, a 10-week internship, a full-time internship, not this 1 week.
Did you teach her know that?
She did after when I told her, hey, I got this internship from NASA, and I was like, but you told me it was only going to be a week in like Florida, and she goes, you got a real one, like you got a full internship, you got a real internship, and it was cool. So I still say that NCAS is the reason I ever ended up at NASA, because if she hadn't given me that pamphlet, I would never have applied, even though I thought I was applying to the other thing. But that's okay. We made it. We're here. But yeah, I love being a mentor to NCAS students. And actually, I had a couple in-person classes, which was weird because I had one in-person class and then the pandemic happened. So,
oh my God.
I know. And then we had virtual NCAS students after that, which is why I've done NCAS so many times, because they just did them back to back to back.
Yeah.
But I had one in-person class.
I can see why you don't have any sleep.
Yeah, right. Well, this was before I was a plug and play. But they came to Marshall, and I had this awesome group of students, like awesome group of students, and we won. It was my first year mentoring, and we won.
Yeah.
We dethroned the guy who had won like 4 or 5 years in a row. I felt so good. But I've actually been in contact with most of them still, and I've gotten internships for like nearly every one of the students in my group. So I love mentoring because it's a way to, yeah, it was
what?
Cool,
are you joking?
A lot of them were so amazing. No. And we had one that had a couple of internships, and then it led to a pathways. Like, so there's actually one of my students that was a community college student that now works with NASA because of NCAS, just like me, which is crazy. So I love mentoring students, and NCAS is a great way to do that, especially if you're in a community college, especially. So you should, anybody who's in community college should apply to NCAS because it's great.
Apply to NCAS, everybody. Apply to NCAS. And now I know what NCAS is.
Yeah,
which is very useful to me. So can you only work at NASA if you're US citizen?
Yes, as a full-time person, I think, but there are some centers, or NASA centers, that allow non-US citizens as interns, and I think JPL is definitely one of them. That one is in California, NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, and there's some other ones. Marshall, where I was at, does not, because we're actually on a controlled Army facility. Yeah, there's like so many rules and whatnot. So I just look up. Honestly, the NASA internships page had one for international students. So it has a ton of information, which is really great. So if anybody ever asks me, I always just point them to that page because I don't know, you know?
That's so good to know, because I think there is a misconception that you can only work there if you are a US citizen,
Mhm.
or you can only get any sort of contract if you are a US citizen. So it's good to know that it's open to a lot more people than maybe
Yeah,
people realize.
it is, and they're trying to make it more open in a general sense too, which is good. I think that's good. More partnerships, and if you're in Europe, you can also work with ESA, and there's a ton of other ways to get involved with a NASA-like program in your country as well.
That's so good to know. We'll try and put some info in the podcast when we release it. So I know that you need to go on the dot, and we have 3 minutes, haven't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's try and answer one final question in 3 minutes. How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right,
Maybe two.
let's do it. Du-du-du-du-du. Maybe two in three
Maybe
minutes.
two.
Okay, this question is from Kendall Dehal. I hope I'm saying it right. And she's asking, do you have any advice about personal branding in engineering? Oh,
Yes.
I would like to know that question too, because apparently
um
I have branding, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's kind of, it just becomes like a thing. I think a lot of people misconstrue branding for your personal style, especially if you're really into fashion like you and I both are. But what's
Yeah.
actually kind of funny is I did an article with In the Know, and I told them my story about how I actually ended up with my NASA co-op, not my internship, but my actual co-op. And it was because I went to one of my friend's presentations, because when you get hired on, they make you do like a rotation and then you have to present. And I used to wear red lipstick all the time, like all the time, all the time. It was like my signature thing. I have grown to understand that there are other colors other than red. Wow, a concept. But that was like my thing. And I talked to this senior manager, and he remembered me because I was wearing red lipstick. And that's literally the reason that I got my NASA co-op, is because he remembered me specifically. And then they found my resume, and they like, I know, it's crazy. Turns out
Excuse
later,
me?
I know. And a couple of years later, I actually ended up working with his son really closely. So like I was friends with his son, and then I was like, "Hey, this is how I got here." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, that was my dad." And I was like, "Oh, that's so weird." Like it was a really cool thing. I'm still friends with the guy and my coworker. It's awesome. It was great. But I used to wear red lipstick all the time, so that was like my signature, right?
Mm.
All my pictures, red lipstick, literally everything. So I think that more than just your personal style, what your personal brand is more about what you're comfortable in, right? So I have made my platform more about fashion and STEM rather than one or the other, because
I
that's really
love it. I
important to
love
me.
it. Yes.
It's so important to me that girls can look at my platform and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to wear khakis or slacks or whatever to be taken seriously in my line of work. Like there are
Mhm.
other options, and we just have to understand that it's more about what you feel comfortable in your own personal style, rather than what's popular or what's expected of you or anything. Like, I mean, I'm wearing purple heart earrings, for goodness sake, right? My sister
I
made
love.
these. My sister made these, by the way. But
Oh, your sister made them.
yeah, she made them. It's more of it just about like, how do you feel? Would you feel comfortable wearing this? If the answer is yes, wear it. If the answer is no, but you want to wear it, maybe that's a leap of confidence that you need to take for yourself. And confidence is fake. Everybody who has confidence will tell you confidence is fake, and it's all about faking it till you make it. So, if I had any advice about your personal brand or personal style, it would be whatever you're comfortable in, and pursue things that you want to be comfortable in, right? So
Yeah.
I want to have this certain style. I'm gonna inch my way towards it until that makes me comfortable, until that's what I'm comfortable in, and that's
Mhm.
how I'll create this sort of style brand around myself. And yeah.
Yeah, I also find sort of when it happens organically or authentically, that's when it's most powerful, rather than like going and getting a spreadsheet out. I mean,
Oh yeah, of
I
course.
don't know.
I do a lot of doom scrolling, of fashion content, and I'm like, oh, I'd never wear that. Oh, maybe that's cute, or like it's something that maybe is out of my comfort zone, but I will get one piece from whatever that outfit is that I like, and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna incorporate this into my outfits until I'm comfortable wearing it. And I've done that with a lot of things, especially heels. Especially heels. I
Mm.
love heels. I love heels, and I love wearing them to work. I mean, I work from home now, but when I was going into the office, I loved wearing them to work, and that was just like a big thing for me. Is I wore them until I was comfortable with wearing heels. Not comfort in the shoes, because we all know how heels are, but like comfortable going to meetings, leading meetings in 4, 5, 6 inch heels, right? Like I have Galaxy Louboutins, and they are so beautiful. They are the most uncomfortable shoes in the world, but I love them so much.
But also the
And
most beautiful shoes in the world.
oh, they are gorgeous. But I haven't been able to wear them. I don't feel comfortable wearing them, so I'll just wear them around the house, and then I'll put them back in the box because I will get there. I'll get there. Those are one of my goal shoes to get comfortable in.
When you do, please take a picture.
I
I'll
will.
be
You know I will. You know it.
I'm excited. I'll be the first person on Instagram to be like, yeah,
I'll
you got
tag
them
you.
just
Tag
like
you in them.
be like next to a rocket, just like
Casual.
you know.
Actually did wear them in my very first at Astra Sue photo shoot. I wore this jacket and a black dress and those shoes, and that was kind of my, this is what I'm doing. I'm here. We're doing it.
I love it. I know that you have to go. I've kept you longer
No, you're
than
fine.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Kendall, for commenting. Kendall says, amazing. Thank you both. Authenticity is everything and great
It
advice.
is.
Thank you, Kendall. Susie, you are a power of nature. I love you so much.
I love you too. You're amazing.
I'm so excited to see what you're going to come up with next.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for having me so much. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. See you in the next
Bye.
episode of Badass Engineers. Bye, ma salama.